Hey kids, you want to build some thumb calluses? About a year ago, having worked on my freehand Sashiko-inspired embroidery for, at best, a couple months, my brain moved on to the next thing, as it does always. What would be my next embroidery exploration? Don't worry about how long this one is gonna take. Have I mentioned there's a list? Of course there's a list. I was super into this no-frame running stitch feel, so I landed on Kantha as the next thing I wanted to try out in the needle arts world. And then I went searching for a book, because when I want to try out a technique that originates in a place or culture that I know nothing about, I like to get a book written by an expert. It's easier nowadays than trying to figure out which online resources are actually legit. There weren't a ton of options though. English language books about a very specific Bengali craft form, apparently rare. By grand coincidence, this book just so happened to be on pre-order at the exact time that I looked. Not sponsored or anything, but it is now out, obviously, if you want to get it. It is a really good book if you are at all interested in the art form that is Kantha. I mean, first of all, it's just beautifully written and created, but also it goes into so many details about where Kantha came from, what it means, how it's being used nowadays, how to stitch it yourself. Highly recommend. So it is now like a year later, and I finally finished that freehand embroidery piece and turned it into a coat. Loads of fun. So I need another embroidery project. Not like I need another embroidery project. I do have 2 long-term embroidery projects still going strong, but I like to have 3, or rather I like to have a 3rd one that is specifically a travel piece. I cannot take these giant frames anywhere. And yeah, I'm still set on trying Kantha, obviously, otherwise that would have been a really weird introduction to a totally different subject. Oh, you're so squish. I want to try out a couple different methods because the book tells us about classification by form, basically unembellished Kantha versus embellished Kantha. Unembellished Kantha was and is for very practical use. It's very similar to hand quilting, I guess. Basically just running stitches done across layers of fabric. Traditionally, old saris that they would stack up and layer together and then stitch through so that fabric that was too thin to be used on its own anymore could be recycled into these nice thick quilts. Within embellished Kantha, she gives us 4 different classifications: illustrative, abstract geometric, botanical, and geofloral or geofigurative. While all of them use running stitch in some form, I believe, some also utilize a bunch of other embroidery stitches, especially pattern darning in different forms. I'm particularly drawn to the abstract geometric style of running stitch with detached chain stitch used to create these simple but beautiful patterns. And then I was also struck by the quilting stitch section, where she shows how they quilted around motifs with these tiny monotone stitches, so it just kind of creates amazing texture without being super visual. I want to play around with a few methods, but I do want to make it clear first of all that I am not an expert on Kantha. I really only know what I've learned about in this book, so if you want to know more about it, I highly recommend doing some research on your own or getting a great book like this. I'm also not going to be replicating specific cultural motifs here. Like with Sashiko, I could very specifically stitch the 36 patterns that were in the book, but this is more about exploring the feeling and the method of Kantha. For starters, I want to do the practical, straight running stitch, piecing together fabric style, but shrunk down. I don't need a full quilt, and using my scrap fabric. I really don't want to get massive here, but I have done like a very small sample before. Where did I put that? There she blows. I sat down with my sister and my stepmom when they were visiting a while back, and we kind of played around with the style a bit. So I do want to do something larger than this. While I gather some scraps, let's take a quick break to talk about this video's sponsor. Anyone else find these massively chonky plastic containers for cleaning products kinda frustrating? I mean, first of all, they're only necessary because so much of the product we pay for is just water. And second of all, they often fail at their one job. Seriously, just the other day, I opened the cabinet under the sink and discovered that a bottle of cleaner had sprung a leak. It feels unfair that a cleaning product can create such a mess. So I've been absolutely thrilled to switch over to Blueland cleaning products, and yes, they are the sponsor of today's video. Blueland's products are 100% plastic-free, concentrated, pre-dosed tablets. Even their packaging is compostable and contains no plastic. I don't have to worry about these lovely metal storage tins springing a leak, and there's nothing to leak out even if they could, so we've got less garbage, less mess, more clean. When it's time for a refill, I'm not having to pay for a plastic bottle or a bunch of water. I'm just getting the actual product I need, free from parabens, phosphates, ammonia, and more, and safe for the whole family. Kids, pets, plants, you name it. Blueland is sharing a special offer just for my viewers. All you have to do is click the link in the description below to get 15% off your first kit. Give Blueland a try and say goodbye to those big, chunky plastic containers that somehow still leak anyway, and hello to safe, easy, plastic-free clean. Now let's get back to hunting for scraps. Scraps, 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 scraps. Wah! I'm gonna use this very ugly piece of fabric as like layer 1, the backing basically, just because then it's easier to piece everything together, you know? Also, sorry if this is like anybody's favorite color or something. I've called this ugly in videos twice. That's a solid size though. I think we have appropriately sized up. Observe. And I'm gonna stick with all of my quilting cotton scraps because it's easier. I'm so bad at choosing color schemes. It always just ends up being rainbow. I like that piece though. I do want to go with slightly bigger scraps here because I'm doing such a big piece. Like I don't want to be sewing this tiny little section of stuff on. This is better. You know what? I'm just gonna stick with the colors of this striped piece. Or like similar-ish. So no blue, that's my biggest section. All right, well that may have been a poor choice, but oh well. Kind of need some brown. Have I ever used brown ever in my life? Honestly, that might already be kind of enough, but I wouldn't mind throwing a few actual fat quarters in here. Oh, there's some brown. No. Oh, the kitties. Well, I need to do some more patchworking. Kind of like that with it, actually. Why do I have, like, no purple? Sacrilege. Purple's my favorite. I've seen a couple different ways to do piecing like this. You can kind of add new pieces as you sew, but I really wanted to lay everything out first and be picky about my color placement and design and such. So once it was ironed, I tried to cut each piece down as little as possible, mainly just trimming off anything sticking out oddly so it would be more rectangular, and then I folded under any top-facing edges as I went and pinned it all down thoroughly. You're so precious. That was really enjoyable. I was actually in kind of a blah mood this morning, and the combination of doing this and listening to happy music was quite rejuvenating. 'Tis now the stitching time, but why so much of your fur already on this? Big yawn. I kind of want to continue using my like leftover bits of thread that didn't end up in the last embroidery piece. I didn't use them because they're all boring colors, but a lot of the boring colors are brown. There is brown on this design, so it kind of feels like the perfect time to use them all up, right? I guess I'll commit to the brown. That makes it sound like I've decided to poop. Commit to the brown. I'm gonna do them all in this direction. That's the thing that I've noticed looking at the different examples of this sort of basic method of Kantha is they only do them in one direction. They don't hashtag crosshatch, and I want them to be perpendicular to the stripes on this one piece. In the videos that I've seen of people making actual Kantha quilts, they leave it on the ground and they stitch in a forward or like away from them direction, which I find fascinating. Instead of like picking it up and having it in your hands, they like weigh it down and make sure it's all flat and everything on the ground, and then literally they're like doing stitches like this forward. It's so cool to watch. So I'm gonna try that. I don't know if I'll need to move onto the hardwood floors because I think doing it on carpet, like I might sew the whole thing to the carpet. I don't know, we'll see. I might not do it today. I have a meeting tomorrow, so that'd be a perfect time to just sit there and stitch. This is pretty, I like it. Are you the cutest potato in the whole world? Are you side-eyeing? Bombastic side-eye. Stitching on the carpet did work, although it probably would have been a good idea to vacuum first. Oh well, everything is dog fur, and dog fur is everything. Whereas sashiko was very much about precision, working on a grid, trying to make all the stitches exactly the same size, Kantha, or at least my inspired by version here, was much more organic and free-flowing. The lines don't have to be straight, the stitches don't have to be the same size. Instead of trying to stack as many stitches as possible onto the needle at once, I realized it's better to just do 2 at a time. I tried the forward or away from you stitching, but found it was easier for me to sit at the side of the piece and work back and forth that way. Less crawling around needed then. Eventually, I rolled up the 2 ends and moved to the couch though, just to help my back out a little, and then I also started using my tiny pliers to pull the needle through because, oh my goodness, it was hurting my thumb. I've actually got the start of a giant blister on the end of it, and that was from stitching like 1/8 of this thing. And I know every time I say stitching hurts in any way, people start crying, thimble, thimble, thimble. But this blister is very specifically from the act of pulling the needle out of the fabric, what I'm doing right there with the pliers, not from pushing it in or doing the stitches themselves. So I don't know that there's a thimble that would help with that. I guess I have seen like little rubber thumb gripper things that would maybe facilitate in the pulling. I don't know, seems like there would still be a lot of pressure on the thumb even if the grip was better. The pliers work great though. I was gonna completely finish this piece before starting with method 2. I am currently, oh, that's pinned. Currently that far through, which is not that much, like 1/4. But because my thumb legit needs some resting time, I figured I'd go ahead and start method number 2 of stitching, and then I can kind of trade off between the 2. I am planning to do this method on just 1 piece of fabric, so it should theoretically not be as intense upon the thumb. I want to do something I've already washed, just in case I end up utilizing this chunk of stitching for something like in a garment later. I could do this pink stuff that I lined my freehand embroidery jacket with. It's a beautiful color and it's, you know, thick and kind of structured without being too thick. Some fabric has such a good snipping sound. That would be something very random to do, but just like get a bunch of different fabric types and record the sound of each of them being cut. I don't know what the purpose of that would be, but it sounds like fun. Okay, not too big of a sample. I'll probably start by doing like a quick hand-sewn hem around the edges. Will I? Scratch that. I'm gonna go run it through the machine really fast. So what we are trying here is the running stitch with detached chain. Oh yeah, I almost forgot she has a bunch of interviews in this book from people who specialize in various forms of Kantha art and such. So she's got a bunch of absolutely beautiful examples here. And again, I love that like, it's not really super duper precise. There's differences in the stitch size and stuff, and it still looks really cool. The grape one is fun, but I like this stools holding hands. First of all, because the concept of stools holding hands with each other is adorable, but I like how many of the detached chain stitches there are, so I might try that one. They do really small running stitches around this one, rather than like the massive running stitches I've been doing on method 1, so that'll be an interesting difference. Yeah, let me throw a hem on here and then we will get started with stools holding hands. They're friends. Oh yeah, I was gonna choose a thread, but I do have some orange in here and I didn't want to use orange on the first piece because there's no orange in the fabric. Yeah, orange on pink, that looks cool. Really trying to use up all this old thread. I will do it, I will accomplish it. After hemming the edges, I went ahead and drew on lines 1/4 of an inch apart, because if I want the pattern to show up clearly, I need the stitching to be somewhat straight. I then kind of drew out what the pattern of detached chain stitches is, just on a sticky note, so that it would settle into my brain a bit, and finally, I went for it. Doing the much tinier stitches is definitely a big change for me, but adding the detached chain stitches is pretty easy and flows well. I realized after just a bit that once again the forward or away from you motion of stitching works really well here. Tis tiny and hard to see, but that's one row down. Took about 20 minutes to stitch that. Looking at the examples again, I noticed that my 1/4 inch apart lines are technically kind of spread out for this style. Most of them look much closer packed together. I considered doubling up and doing a row between each of my lines, but I decided against it, because I wanted to. Or I didn't want to. I also looked closely to see if the stitches were always coming from the same direction, which you can tell by the teardrop shape of the detached chain stitches. And while it looked like most of the time they are all done from the same side, there were some examples where the direction changed, so I decided to alternate each row. I really enjoyed stitching this piece. The single layer of fabric is indeed easier on my thumb, but I mostly like that the running stitch is broken up by the detached chain, which combined with having to keep track of the chain stitch pattern meant that this method just took a little more focus or brain power, like just enough to hold my interest a little higher while still remaining a very methodical, calm form of creation. So once again, I'm not actually done with method 2, or method 1 at this point. This is where we've landed with method 2, so maybe 1/3 of the way done. I'm really enjoying this one. But I am leaving on a road trip in a few days, which once again, I keep mentioning this in videos that are gonna come out after this road trip is long over. It's already happened by now when you're seeing this video. I wanted to bring some of these along with me though, to work on. I love doing embroidery while I'm traveling. This one I can easily take with me, but I'd probably finish in like 3 days, and then I would have nothing for the next 17 days. This one, I'm not sure if I want to take with me, because it's kind of big and bulky. So, because of that, I thought, let me go ahead and get method 3 going. This is the one that I have no intention of finishing in this video. I'm gonna try to finish these 2 in this video. Method 3, I want to be a long-term embroidery project that I can be working on for at least several months. I like having a travel piece that is just there and around, but I do want to get it started in this video. This is going for the more directional quilting kind of method. It's definitely inspired by that quilting method of Kantha where the quilting stitches kind of blend into the background and go around motifs. But I don't really want to sew through multiple layers of fabric. So like this one, I think I'm just gonna do it on one piece of fabric. And I want to just, I don't know, I want to do like a simple design that is completely made out of those running stitches done in the outline. This is something that I don't know that it's specifically the traditional Kantha stitching style, but the first time that I ever saw running stitch used in this like filling in method was in reference to Kantha, which is why I'm doing it this way. I once again need a piece of fabric. I don't want to get up. Back in the closet we go. I do have some white linen somewhere in here. Where is a great question. And y'all know me, I don't often have like natural fiber fabrics, especially not linen, but I bought this one just to be like, I'll have it on hand in case I ever want to do something specifically on linen. And granted, I was definitely thinking more like, you know, making a garment out of this, but I wouldn't mind taking a chunk of it for an embroidery piece, yeah? How do I feel about this? What else do I have? Okay, I've got two different gray materials, and I have sort of a looser weave yellow here. I actually think that I might do a stitch test on all four of these fabrics, like literally just run a needle through it once and see what it feels like. This is being very particular, but I want to enjoy the feeling of stitching this, and there are certain fabrics, there's some of them in the method 1 piece that I'm doing, that just, ooh, they are not fun to pull a needle through. And whether that has to do with the fiber content, the fiber type, or the weave style, I'm not entirely sure. So I'm just gonna very quickly run a needle and thread through all four of these, and the winner will be the one that is most pleasant to my fingers. Okay, I don't even know where these came from, but these needles are absolutely giant, and I really want to use them for this. They're also very sharp. Love that. Fabric number 1. This is very soft. It's quite an enjoyable feel, but it looks like a pretty tight weave. So I feel like it's not going to enjoy the needle. Oh, it does enjoy the needle. Oh, this feels very nice. I mean, maybe it's because this needle is freaking amazing, but the fabric loves it. Oh, it pulls through very easily. Okay, this one gets a yes, but let's try the others. Another gray, this one is much more structured. Again, a pretty tight weave. Okay, maybe it's these needles. Maybe they are just so sharp and amazing. I need to switch to using one of these on method 1 over here, because these things are a delight. Or is the fabric just a delight? Oh, love that. All right, again, we got a yes. This one, pretty loose weave, so it should definitely take to the needle very easily. Oh yeah. Yup. I'd mostly be concerned about this one not being structured enough, but nah, I think it'd be fine. Yeah, okay. I don't think my needle test is actually going to help me decide here, because all of these are great. So this is the linen, and it's definitely the thinnest out of these fabrics. Oh. Okay, you know what? That's still honestly perfectly fine in feel, but compared to the 3 that I just did, it's more unpleasant. It doesn't slide through quite as well, and it's not gonna be as structured as I want. So considering I'd rather save this linen for a garment, this is a no. Okay, I gotta test this real fast just because all of that was so nice. And stitching on this with this needle right here that I've been using has been so unpleasant. So, do I need to switch needles? Nope. Okay. Oh, nope. Not at all. It's Whew, I think it might be this background fabric, but also this green fabric right here, which thankfully I have finished stitching on, has been very unpleasant to stitch through. All right, so switching needles is gonna do nothing for that. Back to method 3. I think I'm actually gonna go with this gray stuff because it felt like a hot knife through butter. I cut out a decent sized chunk and then started hemming the edges. Is this a stretchy fabric? What the? How did I not notice that? Yo, we can't do a stretchy fabric. That's gonna be a pain in the butt. How did I get this far without noticing? Look at this. Like, that is some pretty straight up stretch. Rewind. Okay, so I chose the yellow instead because it's definitely non-stretch. Cut out a decent sized chunk, hemmed the edges, and then laid it out on the table and started sketching a very simple design. I was trying to do it on paper first so I'd have no excess lines on the fabric, but that went south pretty fast, so let's hope the heat erasable pin comes out of this fabric. It usually does. Yep, we're going with a flamingo and monstera leaves, cause pink, green, and yellow seem like a really good color combo to me. Also, flamingos are cute. Okay, since I'm using the bigger needle already, and this is a pretty loose weave, and I no longer have any leftover floss to use up. Hooray! I technically do. I still have 2 grays. Because of all of that, I thought this would be a good chance to use my pearl cotton floss, because I have a bunch of it. What would I need here? Maybe 2 types of green, black, white, pink. I haven't used this stuff in ages. And then I'm also supposed to fill the entire background of this. The whole thing should be covered in stitching when I'm done, but I want the background to be monochrome, so it would all be in yellow. I don't really want to buy more, and I have no idea how much this is going to end up using, so I might do a slightly darker yellow as well and kind of blend them, or I could do like the darker yellow closer to the leaves, almost like it's in shadow, and then do the lighter yellow towards the more open areas. That'd be interesting. I just want to pull everything now because I'm not even gonna start this yet. Maybe, probably not. I might start it before I leave. Who's to say? I'm actually kind of ahead of schedule right now, so I have like a couple of days with not too much on my to-do list. Regardless, I want to be able to pack up every floss color I need for this so I can take it with me, because I don't know how much stitching I'll be able to do on this road trip. One never knows. But one likes to be prepared, and by one, I mean me. That's a solid gradient, so I'll just take all of those. We'll figure it out as we go. And then in the green world, I think that'll work. I might not end up using the darkest ones because they feel just a little dark for monstera leaves anyway, but I will bring them just in case. That's what we got. That's what we're gonna use. I was planning to start by outlining every area in the appropriately colored floss, so then I could iron the piece and erase all of the drawn lines, but I immediately got distracted filling in the base of a leaf. I'm already enjoying this so much. The feeling of the stitching is quite delightful. I can stack so many stitches on the needle at once and it still slides through with such ease. There's definitely gonna be some puckering of the fabric as I go, which can send my brain into alert mode just because I spent so long in the taut fabric in a hoop side of embroidery. But I like that stitching in the hand like this encourages me to relax on that front. I'm really excited to work on this one. I have already packed it up for the trip. Like, I genuinely hope that it takes a long time to stitch so that I can work on it for a long time, you know? But for now, I've mainly been working on method 1, and it's almost done. I don't even think you can see the part that's not done on camera, can you? All of that is done. That little bit on the bottom is not done. It's maybe like 1/8 of it left to do, and I am leaving on my road trip tomorrow morning, so I might honestly finish this one tonight, but regardless, method 1 is staying here. I didn't really want to take this whole thing with me anyway. Method 2 is in here. Hello, what a nice baby. Does somebody need lovin's? Okay. He's about to go to the sitter. We call it going to Grandma's house because he absolutely loves our current dog sitter. So it's like a special thing that he gets to go there, which makes me feel so much better about traveling. Anyway, method 2, method 3, these are both going with me. Cue the travel stitching montage. Turns out I didn't stitch much at all during these 3 weeks on the road, maybe because I was driving so much, but also because I was very much enjoying reading during most of my downtime. I ended up getting nowhere close to method 3, but I did make a little progress on method 2. Very, very slow progress. This one, y'all, it's a tricksy one. This stitch style or design or whatever it is did not seem slow when I first started it, but it's pretty slow. Partially, I think, due to this fabric. It was never pleasant to stitch on, unfortunately, which is why I did all of that stitch testing for method 3. If you're gonna do a slow stitching project that's gonna take time, you want it to feel pleasant to stitch. And this, unfortunately, just did not feel that pleasant to stitch. You'd think it's one piece of fabric, it would be easy to get that needle through, but I literally started using the pliers in the end for this as well. I don't know, I don't know the science behind like why some fabrics are just delicious on a needle and then other fabrics are like, no, I will feel terrible. We are done though. I've been home for a few days and I had some time to finish stitching not only method 1, but also method 2. So let's iron them, ironing first, and then take a look. Well, this has been a really incredible exploration. I've super enjoyed this one, even if it did blister up my thumb a little bit. Really, it just put some calluses there. I like toughening up my thumb. And I know I should use a thimble. I really don't like them. I just don't. But I'm so pleased with both of these pieces. They look so amazing. I mean, this is what I love about embroidery. I mean, there's so many things I love about embroidery, but you can do these complex pieces that are really detailed. You can do a bunch of different stitches and have all this different texture, and those look amazing, but you can also just do a really simple stitch. Like, running stitch has to be the most basic embroidery stitch out there, which is why I think every culture in the world pretty much has come up with their version of running stitch based embroidery. It's so simple, and yet it's so effective and so beautiful. And I think what I really like about Kantha is how they've used it in these different ways, like using it in a very purposeful, what's the word I'm looking for? Practical way to upcycle materials, to make them last longer, to reuse them in some way. That's so cool, and it looks beautiful. Like, if I had just sewn this patchwork together and not quilted over it in the Kantha method, it'd be a pretty piece of patchwork, wahoo! But the addition of the stitching is what really makes it look special, I guess? Which is like, no surprise, I'm preaching to the choir for all the quilters out there. The stitching, I think, is just as big a part of quilting as like the patchworking together. But then, like on this one, just the addition of one extra stitch to create these patterns, it looks so cool. I do think the pattern would have stood out a lot more, of course, if I had squished my lines together the way that they were in the example. I'm glad I didn't do that. If it had been a pleasant fabric to stitch on and I wanted to keep going for like a year and keep working on this piece, yeah, I could have done crammed together lines, but I'm happy to be done with this example and this piece of fabric. And then the third method, which I'm so excited about. I haven't touched it again since we last talked, which was like a month ago. But I think this is the one that most fascinated me in the first place, this idea of using running stitch to fill areas and to add color or to just add texture. It really was the most fascinating one to me, and so I can't wait to continue working on this. I know it's going to be so enjoyable. I'm going on another trip in like a week. I'm gonna go catch up with Matt on tour and spend some time with him. So this one is going with me, and I will actually have some time to work on it this time, for sure. So of course, this is not getting finished in this video. As I said, this is my long-term project. I hope that it takes me months to finish it, quite honestly. If you ever want to see the progress on it, just check on Instagram, my stories, posts. I'll post when I finish it. I'm excited for this one. Have you ever tried Kantha stitching? Do you know of any other running stitch based embroidery types from around the world? I know somebody mentioned one on a video recently, and I'm pretty sure I wrote it down, but I'm so fascinated by these cultural variations in embroidery. It's just so cool to study and to look into and to try. So big recommend trying Kantha or Kantha inspired stitching if you haven't already. God, see, this is the problem. I pull this out and now I want to stitch on it right now. I don't have time right now, but tonight maybe. Tonight I might do some stitching. Ooh, my head just did something weird. That's always exciting. Ooh, my nose. Ugh. Is this not exciting? Oh my God, my face is burning. Oh, don't sit on your mic. What is causing that? I worry that it's going to make me go insane. We're back on this though, because I don't think that's enough. Or blah, 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 blah. Thoughts. Twat. Nope, that sounds too much like twat.